This is garbage. That is the best proof that you have that if they're going to get him going or get him coming, it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. This is a sham. This is not the United States of America. This is some third-rate banana republic. If this were happening in another country, we would be laughing at them as a sham democracy. I am ashamed as an American citizen to sit here in a courtroom watching the former leader of the free world, and let's be honest, likely next leader of the free world, sitting with the indignity in this dingy third-rate courtroom with fourth-rate prosecutors and a fifth-rate lawyer on the stand as a witness, who actually is violating attorney-client privilege left and right. Nobody's even talking about that.
Earlier today, Donald Trump arrived in Manhattan at the courtroom. And of course, as usual, he spoke to the media that was assembled there. And I'll show you the very beginning of it. But honestly, what President Trump had to say on his way into the Manhattan courtroom is not nearly as important as the people you will see filing in behind him. Just take a look at this.
Our president now in court, about to speak to the cameras. Let's drop on in.
Surrogates, and they are speaking very beautifully, and they come all from all over Washington, and they're highly respected, and they think this is the greatest scam they've ever seen. And some are Democrats. They're very embarrassed by what's going on. I just want to start by saying that on the electric vehicles that Biden is pushing down everybody's throat, even though people don't want them, he wants to put a big tariff on China, which is a suggestion that I said, where have you been for 3.5 years? They should have done it a long time ago.
That's right, indeed. Joe Biden has announced tariffs on electric vehicles, which is kind of funny considering he's trying to cram electric vehicles down your throat. When President Trump had tariffs against China back in 2020, Joe Biden criticized him, mocked him about those tariffs. And now Biden's tariffs are even more robust. But, you know, who wants consistency of policy from this gang? He doesn't believe in anything. He just believes in furthering his political career. But again, as I mentioned, take a look behind President Trump. What you see there is Congressman Cory Mills of Florida. You see Governor Doug Burgum of North Dakota, Congressman Byron Donalds of Florida, Vivek Ramaswamy, and the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. A show of solidarity, a show of force, and a show of defiance against this fraud, this scam, this absolute sham. And they went into the very first session of the testimony of Michael Cohen and the case that's going on right now. And we'll get into some of the testimony in a bit if we have time, but it's not as important as what we're seeing right now, because as they emerged during a recess, they went to the microphones and they told the American people exactly what's going on here. Let me be clear. Everything you're about to see from Doug Burgum, Vivek Ramaswamy, Cory Mills, everything they say, if Donald Trump had stepped out, the man who stands accused by the government, the man who was innocent until proven guilty, if he stepped out of the courtroom and said exactly the same thing, this judge would throw him in jail. Let me repeat that. Everything you're about to see from these governors, members of Congress, prominent Republicans, everything they say, if Donald Trump came out and said the exact same thing, the judge would throw him in jail. And here's what they had to say. We'll start with Doug Burgum. This is breaking. It just happened moments ago.
President Trump is leading all over the country. And the conclusion you could draw from that is the American people have already acquitted Donald Trump because the things that they're concerned about, inflation, crime, the border, the economy, all of these things, President Trump is leading by huge double digits versus Joe Biden. And the sooner that this scam trial can be concluded, the sooner that the president can get back to getting out, campaigning, and talking to the American people about the issues that matter to them. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the congressman, then Vivek. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen of America, this trial is a joke. This thing is a farce. We were in there all morning. Michael Cohen basically sat there and said, yeah, he invoiced legal expenses. The Trump campaign, the Trump organization, not the campaign, paid out money in legal expenses. Where's the crime? There is no crime. The only crime that's happening here is this Democrat judge and the Democrat Party prosecuting their political rival right in the middle of a presidential election. The crime here is that the issues facing our nation are not being addressed by the Democrats, but they want to go after Donald Trump. And there's nothing wrong. There's nothing that has been wrong here. Nothing that has been done poorly by President Trump. The only thing that's being done wrong is by this judge. His daughter's making money, raising money for Democrats. And all of the fundraising emails and all the fundraising things are about this trial that his daughter is using. He won't recuse himself. This is a travesty of justice. This is a misuse of the justice system. And look around New York. New York's got plenty of issues. I'm from Brooklyn, New York. You have all of NYPD's finest down here because of this travesty going on in that courtroom. Meanwhile, the citizens of New York are less safe, and the district attorney in New York is not prosecuting real crime. He's a Soros-backed DA going after his chief political rival in Donald Trump. America is better than this. And so, unfortunately, it's going to take the American people this November to let their voices be heard on this travesty of justice that's occurring and making sure that Donald Trump is the 47th president of the United States. I've never seen anything like it. This is a joke. It is a farce. It is a travesty. We are better than this as Americans. And unfortunately, the Democrat Party has lost their ever-loving minds. And so it's going to take the American people to remind them that justice is supposed to be blind. It is not supposed to be going after political opponents and political rivals. With that, I'll turn it over to my colleague from Florida, Congressman Cory Mills.
Thank you so much. What have we learned here today? What we've learned is that Michael Cohen, who has no credibility, who has purged himself multiple times, who has zero integrity, has actually admitted to defrauding the Trump organization. He has listed his invoice as being an actual legal precedent where, in fact, he's now claiming that it's something other than that and that he knowingly and fraudulently put that forward. Look, as we talked about, why do they want this trial to continue? Well, they want it to continue because this is the fundraising source for Adam Schiff, for Biden, and for the Democrat opponents. This is nothing more than election interference at its finest. You are seeing where the weaponization of what was the Department of Justice, now the Department of Injustice, has continued to be utilized against the American people and against the President of the United States. I will tell you right now, the same way that I stand here steadfast behind our president, I know that America stands with him as well. They see this sham indictment. They see this for what it is without any actual substance whatsoever. Keep in mind, they keep actually talking about the FEC violations, but when you're utilizing personal funds or you're utilizing a trust, that is not campaign funding. There is no violation, which is why the FEC never actually even pursued this. And so I think the American people see this for what it is. They want to keep President Trump off the campaign trail. They're seeing what's happening in the swing states across America, and they're seeing exactly that this is draining down assets and resources that can be utilized by the president to continue to forge ahead, to build a stronger economy, to secure our border, and to get our nation back on track. This is a sham, and that is the only thing this is. Michael Cohen has no credibility, no integrity, and this is weaponization against our president.
Thank you. I want to thank my colleagues, Governor Burgum, Congressman Mills, and Congressman Donalds, for laying out the political backdrop here. This is a politicized persecution that is nakedly apparent. What I want to do is dive a little bit deeper into what we actually learned today in that courtroom. What do we see in there? First of all, I learned a lot from being in there in person. It is one of the most depressing places I have been in my life, but it is fitting because the only thing more depressing than the environment of that courtroom is what's actually happening in there. It's straight out of a Kafka novel. The prosecution's main strategy appears to be to bore the jurors into submission. And if you look in that direction, sadly, it may appear to actually be working. Now, I would like for anybody here in the press, anybody at home, anybody at MSNBC or the media afterwards, to clearly state what exactly is the crime that Donald Trump committed. Oh, wait. We have not heard a good answer to that question. It has been vague until today. You heard Michael Cohen's testimony, after which I would say it is less clear than ever what that crime actually was. They'll say falsifying business records. Well, let's look at who did we learn falsified business records today? Yet, what, hour, 2 hours, felt like it could have been 7 hours of Michael Cohen talking about how he falsified business records. Okay, so you have a guy who has been a perjurer in the past that is now saying he falsified business records. What is the crime that Donald Trump committed? Now, it appears to be what they might allege is some sort of bookkeeping error or whatever. The real bookkeeping that we need accounting of is Judge Merchan's own family member collecting millions of dollars as a Democratic operative, using the existence of this trial as a fundraising ploy for Democrats. This is unconscionable. Imagine if the same shoe fit the other foot. Imagine if it was Joe Biden that was on trial. You had a Republican judge whose son was collecting millions of dollars as a Republican operative. What would you all be saying? This would not be justice. This is injustice at its worst. So let's go even a layer deeper, right? Because let's go even a layer deeper, actually. The alleged crime here is supposedly, they try to point to this every day, that he does not actually use campaign funds, that he used personal funds. Well, let's get this straight. Suppose Donald Trump had used campaign funds to make a personal expense. They'd be going after him for that. So if they're going to get him going or they're going to get him coming, that is the best proof that this is a politicized sham. Let's go through it piece by piece. If you tell somebody to go buy you a suit and you want to look good on television because that'll affect the voters, the way voters vote for you, you know what? They prosecute politicians if they use campaign funds to buy a suit. If they say, go get a haircut, if you use campaign funds to get a haircut because you want to look good to the voters, they will actually prosecute you for using campaign funds for a personal expense. Yet the entire legal theory of this case, the whole case that Alvin Bragg has brought, depends on one premise for them to charge this as a felony, is that Donald Trump somehow should have used campaign funds to make an allegedly personal payment. Yet if he had done that, their case against him would be even stronger. This is garbage. That is the best proof that you have that if they're going to get him going or get him coming, it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. This is a sham. This is not the United States of America. This is some third-rate banana republic. If this were happening in another country, we would be laughing at them as a sham democracy. I am ashamed as an American citizen to sit here in a courtroom watching the former leader of the free world, and let's be honest, likely next leader of the free world, sitting with the indignity in this dingy third-rate courtroom with fourth-rate prosecutors and a fifth-rate lawyer on the stand as a witness, who actually is violating attorney-client privilege left and right. Nobody's even talking about that. So this is a shame. Shame on the spirit in our country's history, but we will get through it and be stronger because you know who ultimately actually cast the vote on this case? It's not just the jurors in that jury box. It's every one of you at home. It's every American who votes this November to say no to the weaponization of justice. And if you're at home, you may say, you know what, I don't agree with everything Donald Trump's ever said. You know what, I may not agree with some of his policies even though they were great policies for 4 years. But you do agree, whether you are Democrat or Republican or black or white or gay or straight or man or woman, that our justice system should be blind to politics. That regardless of whether your last name is Biden or Trump, regardless of whether you've been a politician or not, you get a fair shake in our own legal system. And when you have a prosecutor who campaigned on the pledge of going after Trump and then keeps his campaign pledge, when you have a judge whose kids are collecting money from Democratic operatives by fundraising off the very trial that judge is presiding over, and then telling the U.S. president that he's subject to a gag order, that he can't talk about it, that is not justice. That is a bastardization of what this country was founded on. And I'm here, and all of us are here as friends of Donald Trump, supporting him in our personal capacity, sharing our opinions. That's why we're here today. But I hope every American at home who isn't able to be in that courtroom is able to see what's actually happening there. And when you do, we will have a landslide of historic proportion this November if every American understands the injustice that's playing out in that courtroom today.
Hell to the hell yes. Are you not fired up right now? Thank you, Vivek Ramaswamy. Thank you, Congressman Donalds and Mills. Thank you, Governor Burgum. How awesome is it to see them showing this solidarity? By the way, earlier, Speaker Mike Johnson, we didn't grab that one for you, but Speaker Mike Johnson also showing his solidarity for Donald Trump. The Speaker of the House of the United States, not lost on any of us. They're all wearing the same uniform. It's like, it's like the freaking Avengers there, getting all dressed up in the same crime-fighting uniform to save the planet and save the country from what's going on here. And he not only is he showing what a sham this trial is, but he actually gave better legal analysis and a breakdown of the laws and how the law is completely being twisted here with regard to campaign finance, money versus personal money. And you used your personal money, but it was a campaign-related thing. Well, what if he had used campaign money? That would have been even worse. It's like, so in other words, you set up enough laws so that if you want to prosecute somebody for some reason, you've got a law that you can find? And the answer is yes. That's exactly right. That's exactly what this is. But for those of you who have been wondering, where is the Republican Party? Where is the solidarity? Where is some sign of force? There you have it. And by the way, it's not just today in New York City. Yesterday as well, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance was there, along with Alabama Senator Tommy Tuberville. We're going to look at that a little bit too, just a little bit of J.D. Vance at least. But again, I want to remind you, if Donald Trump, the man who stands accused, who is fighting to defend himself as the innocent until proven guilty defendant in a United States court of law, if he went out and said exactly what Vivek Ramaswamy just said there, the judge would put him in jail. But it's okay for Vivek Ramaswamy to say it, or Byron Donalds, or Doug Burgum, or Cory Mills. I need a legal expert to explain that to me. I need somebody who understands the First Amendment and due process and the Fourth Amendment and the Fifth Amendment and every other protection that we, the people, enjoy in this United States Constitution. I need them to explain to me why these guys can say it, I can say it, but the man who stands accused, who is defending himself against the full force of the United States justice system, he's not allowed to say it because of one man's whim, a judge who's compromised because his daughter is raising money for Democrat politicians off of this trial. What I just said, if Donald Trump said it, he'd be in jail. Here's J.D. Vance, senator from the United States from Ohio, United States senator from Ohio, yesterday.
But number one, I'm here for the simple reason to show support for a friend. I think this trial is absolutely ridiculous. I think it's a sham prosecution. And I think that luckily the president's supporters should know that he's actually in great spirits despite the circumstances of this. He should be out on the campaign trail. But of course, he's here with this trial. Let me say something about what I've witnessed so far in my couple hours in there. First of all, Michael Cohen is the prosecution's star witness. This guy is a convicted felon who admitted in his testimony that he secretly recorded his former employer, that he only did it once, allegedly, and that this was supposed to help Donald Trump. Does any reasonable, sensible person believe anything that Michael Cohen says? I don't think that they should. And I actually think that his testimony is going to hurt with any reasonable juror. And hopefully we have a few of those.
That's right. Listen, this guy, Michael Cohen, admits that he secretly taped his own client and now is revealing everything that's on the tape and everything. That's not only a violation of privacy, it's a violation of attorney-client privilege. It's a violation of ethical standards that lawyers are supposed to adhere to. And also, here's the best part of all. The alleged recording of Donald Trump actually helps Donald Trump's defense. Let me explain. The first point is when this recording took place. The recording took place in January of 2017. Now, Michael Cohen says that this recording proves that the labeling of the payments to Stormy Daniels, it was decided that it would be labeled as legal fees, right? And this is a recording showing that they were agreeing to do that, right? And that's what Donald Trump is being accused of breaking the law, falsifying financial records. But here's the problem. That conversation took place in January of 2017. The prosecutor contends that Donald Trump falsified these records to get around federal election law because this helped him in the campaign. But if the conversation took place in January of 2017 and it was after that that they falsified the records allegedly, the election was already over. How is that going to help him in the campaign? It doesn't help him in the campaign. The campaign's already done. But then there's also the contents of the recording. Jonathan Turley, a law professor at George Washington University, he appeared on Larry Kudlow, and I want to show you that.
Well, the most important thing about the audio tape is that there was an audio tape. I mean, for most lawyers, listening to this tape is really an appalling moment. The very idea that an attorney would tape a client without their knowledge or consent just shatters every aspect of professional conduct. But the tape really doesn't offer much. Like much else in Cohen's testimony, he gives these details of how he goes to his client and says, I fixed the problem. I arranged for payments. This is not good. This story is going to go away, at least before the election. And Trump saying things like, good. Well, that sounds a lot like a client following the directions of his lawyer. But now the lawyer is telling the jury, I think you should send my client to prison for doing what I suggested for him to do.
That's the most critical thing about this whole thing. All you saw on CNN and MSNBC, Michael Cohen, blockbuster audio. He secretly taped Donald Trump because, if you secretly tape somebody, that means by definition, the guy you're secretly taping must be guilty of something. But what's the contents of the tape? It's Michael Cohen saying, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this. And Trump saying, okay, sounds good. Thanks. It's not Donald Trump ordering his lawyer to do these things. It's the lawyer saying, I'm going to do it. And now Donald Trump's the one who should go to jail for just, allowing his lawyer to do these things? I mean, far be it for me, as somebody who does not have a law degree, to step in and try to give legal analysis of where this case is and what the origins of it are. I'll leave that to smarter men than I, people like Jeffrey Toobin. But on the face of it, in the details, in the actual evidence, the charges, and the conduct of the people involved, not to even barely mention the political affiliation, the brazen, partisan, biased political affiliation of those who are representing the government to bring the full force of law against the man who is currently running for president, taking him out of the campaign, off the campaign trail, and literally silencing him. Everything about this case, and I mean everything about it, is a complete and total fraud. A political kangaroo court meant to try to keep you from voting from a person who you want to vote for. That's Banana Republic stuff. And you know it. I know it. And now we've got a full sign of unity from Republicans in Washington, D.C., including the Speaker of the House of the United States, signaling to everyone here that he knows it too. We all know it. And this whole thing will be over very, very soon.